Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of how to make puffy paws. This part is covering the sewing tips and tricks and how to put your paws together. If you already have a pattern, this part's for you. If you'd like to make your own pattern, you can go back and check out part 1 where I explain how to make your own pattern. If you get too far into this video, I have a few people I need to thank, and that is my Patreons. Without these amazing, incredible people, I would not be able to bring you this video, as these videos take me a very long time to make, and there's hours and hours of footage. So thank you guys so much, and I love you all, and I really appreciate your support. So with that being said, let's get into it. So let's jump into it. The first step is to trace out all our pieces, and I'm making sure to take note of the fur direction. So the fur direction should always go towards the end of your extremities, for example towards the end of your fingers, toes, or towards the end of the tail. So I'm making sure to make note of that here. I'm also making sure to mark on those little dashes that you talked about in the last video, so I know where to attach them to the palms. I'm making sure to cut out all my pieces, so 2 palms, 2 top of the hands, and 4 one way and 4 the other of each of my finger pieces. And now it's on to cutting. Now let's talk about some tips for cutting fur with scissors, because it is definitely my preferred way to cut fur. Now in order to get this beautiful clean seam here, we want to make sure we're running our scissor blade right along the backing of the fabric, not catching any of the fibers, and you'll see the difference here in a second. See that beautiful clean edge versus all these fibers being cut, which ends up with very visible and icky looking seams. So try and run your blade only along the backing fabric. So now onto paw pads. I've got a beautiful plush minky here for my paw pads, and I'm just cutting a rectangle out that is slightly bigger than the paw pad shape that I need. And I'm pinning that in place, making sure the fabric is sitting nice and flat, which can be a little bit hard with the pile of the fur, but taking your time and repinning to make sure it's flat is very important. Next, I'm clipping up the darts for the top of the finger so that they're all ready to go for sewing, and using these alligator clips is honestly such a great thing with fur. It really is. I recommend trying it. And now I'm just running a straight stitch all the way around my paw, which by the way was very hard to do with one hand, but we got it done. So yeah, just a straight stitch, making sure my stitches are quite close together so it's nice and strong. And I'm also using a polyester thread too, which is another very strong type of thread. Now we're going to start batch sewing our darts. Now I do this to save thread, so I make sure to back stitch the beginning and the end of each piece so that it doesn't come undone, as you can see there. Then once I'm done that piece, I simply grab the next one and put it under the machine and keep going. So now I don't have all this wasted extra thread in between, and honestly it saves so much time, and if you can, I would highly recommend giving it a go. Alternatively, you can always hand sew these sections, but I always machine sew. And see, it ends up in this really big long chain, and you just cut them apart and you've saved yourself so much thread. After we have stitched up all our darts and all our paw pads and have snipped all our little dart pieces together, it's time to trim around the outside of our paws. So just getting a nice sharp pair of scissors, I'm just trimming around the minky. This process can be quite slow, but it's worth taking your time on. So I slowly trim all the way around the edge, and I keep looking and adjusting. You can always readjust. I'm only leaving about 2 mil away from the seam, making sure not to cut my stitches, just leaving enough that it won't tear, but also only leaving about 2 mil makes it look quite seamless, I find. So I like to only leave 1 to 2 mil. Now it's just a case of rinse and repeat, and we want to do this with every paw pad and our palm pads as well, getting them to a place we're happy with and pulling and brushing out any fur that's stuck underneath our paw pads, and we should get a beautiful clean finished look. Now it's on to lining for our paws, and I line mine slightly differently. I only line the fingers because I think this really helps with movement. Now what I did here is I laid up a piece of cotton fabric with all the pieces I need and just cut around it all at once because I had sharp scissors and I could do that. This doesn't really have to be perfect, just need to remember to leave your seam allowance and have one for each finger. And now it's time to make these paw pads nice and fluffy and less flat looking. So we're just going to snip a little hole in the back and add some polyester stuffing into it. And this is really up to you, personal preference. You can stuff it as much as you want. I go for quite a puffy look, but the more you stuff it, the harder your paws when they're finished are going to be to turn around the right way. But just stuff it to where you're happy with. And at this point I always do a little bit of extra clean up around the edges because I find when I stuff it, it really shows any imperfections. So we just continue to do that with our palms and with every finger. And we also need to remember to stitch up that little hole that we cut in the back to stuff from. So I'm double threading my needle, which means I'm pulling the thread through and knotting both ends together to make a double thread for when we're stitching. Now, the stitch that I'm using here is just a basic blanket stitch. So all that I'm doing is I'm pushing my needle through the fabric, like so, wrapping my fabric around the needle or picking up the loop that we made and pulling it tight. I'm only picking up a tiny amount of fabric, but doing this stitch is really a nice, strong and secure way of closing this little slit we needed to make.
Proud of yourself?
Really? You proud? Okay. That landed on my arm, and that hurt. Okay. Yeah. You're a butthole.
Thunder crashing as we're breaking down the walls. Lightning flashing, lucky I got you. You got me. Rainbow crossing as we're heading for the sun. Ain't no stopping, ready. I got you. You got me. Dragons at the gate, they won't stop us getting to the top. Flying into space like a rocket, never giving up. I was all alone when I started, always been the same. Now you're here, the journey's uncharted, everything will change. You know we rule the world. You know we rule the world. Yeah, yeah. Rule the world. You know we rule the world. Rule the world. You know we rule the world. Yeah, yeah. Rule the world. You know we rule the world. Stars up high will guide.
Now it's time to assemble our fingers. Yay! So first of all, I am pinning the top of my finger to the bottom of my finger, making sure that everything is lined up the way that we patterned it, and making sure that little dart is lining up to the front. That's a really good indicator of where everything should line up. And then after I have made everything match up and pinned it all, worked in the seam so that it fits nicely, I then pin my lining over the top. So to save a little bit of sewing, I sew all these three pieces as one whole piece, rather than sewing the two fur bits together, then sewing the lining on top again. To save just that little bit of extra sewing, I sew them all as one piece, and honestly it saves so much time. It's ridiculous how much time just this little step saves. So we're going to be sewing all the way around that pinned area, making sure to leave the bottom of the finger open. And once again, I'm just using a blanket stitch, and every now and again I chuck in a lock stitch. Now to do a lock stitch, It's like our normal blanket stitch, but instead of wrapping the thread around the needle once, we wrap it around twice, and this basically creates a knot. So that means if a stitch broke, it wouldn't unravel too much because there would be a knot every now and again stopping it from unraveling. So I just do this all the way around my finger. And we just have to repeat that for every one of our fingers. Now see how I didn't stitch the bottom of our lining closed there, and I've left the bottom of the fur open. We need somewhere to obviously put our finger in the paw, which is going to be between the lining and the paw pad there, and we need to be able to turn our paws out the right way, which is what we're going to do next. So we're going to make sure we have all the pieces we need, and we're going to turn all our fingers in the right way, which, to be honest, is a bit more of a struggle than what you would think. And sometimes it's good to like get the end of like a thick paintbrush or something to help you turn your fingers the right way. But it's a good chance to check and have a look at how your work is going so far.
We'll meet again.
I'm taking one of my fingers and getting ready to stuff it. So we want to put our stuffing on top of that black fabric. So our finger should sit between our black lining fabric or whatever fabric you use to line and the face that has the paw pads on it. So between that little gap is where you want your finger to sit. So between the fur or the top of the finger and that black lining you want to stuff. And fill that gap up with as much stuffing as you want till it's as firm as you like, as you can see like I've done here. And then I'm just pinning it to the top of my handpiece. So the top of my handpiece, we're pinning it together ready to stitch across, which will stitch all three pieces together again. So we'll stitch the palm, the top of the finger and the lining. We're making sure not to stitch on the piece that has our paw pad on it because we need somewhere to put our finger. Now once again I'm using a blanket stitch, and every now and again chuck it in a lock stitch just for some extra security. And this step of stitching all the fingers on can be a bit tricky. It honestly really can be, but just take your time and you'll be able to do it. And see how we've got that little gap now to put our fingy in, and it's nice and stuffed and squishy on top. So we're just going to repeat this for all of our fingers for both our hands. Now next is what I consider the trickiest step, and that is adding our palm on. So the way that I guess attack this is I will stitch on the finger section first and then work my way all the way around. But honestly, just give it a go. it is a pretty strong learning curve, and it's not easy, but I think it creates a great result. So just give it a go. Maybe I am doing this the hardest way possible and someone out there has a better method of doing these steps, but this is the way that I have, I guess, taught myself to do it. But I'm willing to hear suggestions in the comments if you have an easier way. But we're just attaching that palm piece to our paw now.
The sad machine, to the TV screens. Let love win when it's hard to find, when it's cold outside. I'm alright out here in a lost land, heartbeat like a tambourine. These fever dreams won't let me sleep, so come real close, if only for a moment. I don't care where it's going, and show me what'll happen when you let love win. 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 Don't hide out. I know it's safe and sound when they're not around. Try your luck. I know it's not for sure, but it could be the cure. And I'm alright out here in a lost land, heartbeat like a tambourine. These fever dreams won't let me sleep, so come real close, if only for a moment. I don't care where it's going, and show me what'll happen when we let love win. 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 When we let love win.
And thank goodness we're on to the final step. So we're just going to be adding a trim to the top of our paws, and you can use any material you like. I'm using a 1-inch piece of Minky here. You can buy trims that are like all ready to go, but I find Minky works just fine. And all I'm doing is I'm just folding it over the edge of my paws here, and I'm doing a back stitch all the way around. So you put your needle through the fabric and do a normal stitch, pull it all the way through, and then you start your next stitch halfway through the stitch you just did, and that's how you do a back stitch. The purpose of adding this trim around the top, not only does it look super professional and clean, but it also stops the top of your fur of your paws here fraying and getting damaged really quickly. It really helps the longevity of your paws, because obviously your hands move a lot and you normally take your paws on and off all the time while you're suiting, and so they get a lot of wear and tear, so we want to make sure that they're going to last a long time and to protect our fabric. So we want to add our trim all the way around the top of our paws.
When it's hard to find, when it's cold outside, I'm alright out here in a lost land. Heartbeat like a tambourine, these fever dreams won't let me sleep. So come real close, if only for a moment. I don't care where it's going, and show me what'll happen when you let love win. 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 Don't hide out. I know it's safe and sound when they're not around. Try your luck. I know it's not for sure, but it could be the cure. And I'm alright out here in a lost land. Heartbeat like a tambourine, these fever dreams won't let me sleep. So come real close, if only for a moment. I don't care where it's going, and show me what'll happen when we let love win. 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 When we let love win.
And yay! We have done it. We've made our very own puffy paws. Now I just want to thank you guys for sticking around this long into the video. I know it is a long video, but I hope you're happy with your results, and I hope you feel confident to make your own paws. And I would absolutely love to see anyone's creation, so feel free to send them to me, tag me in them. I want to see your wonderful, wonderful work. If you'd like one-on-one help or want to support me as an artist, maybe check out my Patreon for exclusive tutorials. But thank you guys so much for your support of my work and for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.